I came home from the hospital on a Tuesday afternoon, April 15th. The taxi pulled up to my house, the brick ranch I'd lived in for 35 years, the one my late husband Robert and I bought when David was just a baby. The driver helped me with my overnight bag. My knee was still stiff from the replacement surgery. 3 weeks in the hospital. 3 weeks of physical therapy, pain medication, trying to learn to walk again. I stood at the front door, reached for my keys, the familiar weight of them in my hand, the house key, the mailbox key, the little keychain Robert had given me on our 20th anniversary. I put the key in the lock. It didn't fit. I tried again. Turned it the other way. Nothing. The key scraped against metal that didn't match anymore. Someone had changed the locks. I knocked. My own front door. I knocked on it like a stranger. Footsteps inside. The door opened. A young woman stood there, maybe 30 years old. She had a baby on her hip. Couldn't have been more than 6 months old. The baby was wearing a yellow onesie. I could hear a television in the background. My television. My living room. "Can I help you?" the woman asked. She looked confused, concerned even, like I was lost. I couldn't speak for a moment. This was my house, my porch, my roses blooming by the front walk. I'd planted those when David was born. "Who are you?" I finally said. My voice sounded strange, hollow. The woman shifted the baby to her other hip. "I'm Amanda," she said. "We live here. Is there something I can help you with?" I stared at her, at the baby, at the doorway I'd walked through 10,000 times. "You live here?" I repeated. She nodded, started to look worried now. "Yes, we bought this house 3 weeks ago. Are you okay?" 3 weeks ago. I'd been in the hospital 3 weeks ago, having surgery. While I was lying in a hospital bed learning to walk again, someone had sold my house. My legs felt weak. I reached for the porch railing, the one I'd painted green 2 summers ago. The taxi driver was still standing by his car, watching. "Ma'am," he called, "you need help." I shook my head, couldn't speak. Amanda, this stranger, said something about calling someone. I stepped back from the door, my door, except it wasn't mine anymore. I could see past her into the living room, different furniture, a baby swing where my reading chair used to be, toys scattered on the floor, the carpet I'd vacuumed 1,000 times. I pulled out my phone, dialed David, my son. He'd been handling things while I was in the hospital, taking care of the house, he'd said, making sure everything was okay. The phone rang and rang. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing, voicemail. I looked back at the house, my garden. Someone had put plastic toys in the yard, a little slide, a sandbox where my rose garden used to be on the side lawn. 35 years. I'd raised David in that house. Every room had a memory. His first steps in the kitchen. Teaching him to ride a bike in the driveway. Every birthday, every Christmas, every ordinary Tuesday morning. And now a stranger was standing in my doorway holding a baby, telling me she lived there. That's when I knew something was very, very wrong. I was a widow. Robert died 8 years ago. Heart attack. Sudden. I'd been a high school English teacher for 30 years. Retired now. I'd lived in this house for 35 years. We bought it in 1990. David was 2 years old. Robert and I had saved for years for the down payment. It was our dream house. Brick ranch. 3 bedrooms. A big backyard for David to play in. A front porch where I could have my morning coffee. We'd paid off the mortgage 5 years ago. It was mine. Free and clear. I stood on the sidewalk with my overnight bag trying to understand what was happening. The taxi driver asked if I was sure I didn't need help. I told him I was fine. I wasn't. I called my neighbor, Carol. She answered on the second ring. "Carol," I said, "something's wrong. There are people in my house." She was at my side in 5 minutes, didn't even ask questions, just came. That's the kind of friend she was. Carol had lived next door for 20 years. She was retired too, a nurse, 65 years old, practical, no nonsense. She took one look at me standing on the sidewalk and said, "Come to my house, now." I followed her. I didn't know what else to do. In her kitchen, she made me tea. The mug said, "World's Best Friend." She'd given it to me 10 years ago for my birthday. I held it with both hands and couldn't stop shaking. "Tell me everything," Carol said. So I did. The hospital. 3 weeks for a knee replacement. David had visited me every few days. He'd said he was taking care of the house, making sure everything was okay, paying the bills, checking the mail. I'd trusted him. He was my son. Why wouldn't I trust him? Carol listened. Her face got tighter and tighter. "Margaret," she said finally, "I saw a moving truck at your house 2 weeks ago. I tried to call you, but you were still in the hospital and your phone was off. David told me you were moving to assisted living. He said you'd decided the house was too much for you." I stared at her. "I never said that." Carol nodded. "I know that now, but he was very convincing. He said you'd asked him to handle the sale, that you wanted to be closer to medical care." Her voice trailed off. She looked guilty, like she should have known, should have checked. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You couldn't have known," I said, but inside I was realizing something. David had planned this. While I was in the hospital, helpless, learning to walk again, he'd sold my house out from under me. I'd helped David his whole life. $45,000 for his college tuition. I took out a second mortgage on the house to pay for it. $30,000 for the down payment on his first house. My entire retirement savings, gone. $18,000 when his business failed 3 years ago. I cashed out bonds I'd been saving for 20 years. When he divorced 2 years ago, $25,000 for his legal fees. My emergency fund. Total, $118,000 over. 20 years. Every time he said he'd pay me back. He never did. Every time, he had a reason. A good reason. The business would turn around. The divorce wasn't his fault. His ex-wife took everything. I thought I was helping my son build a future. I see now I was teaching him he'd never have to face consequences. David was 45 now. His business, marketing consulting, had failed 3 years ago. He'd lost clients, made bad investments. Then the divorce. His ex-wife got the house, most of their savings. He'd been living in a 1-bedroom apartment, paying alimony he couldn't afford. He looked thin the last time I saw him, exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. He'd mentioned money troubles when he visited me in the hospital, but he hadn't given details. I'd worried about him. I should have asked more questions. I should have paid attention. But I was on pain medication, barely able to think straight. And he was my son. I wanted to help. "Did you sign anything?" Carol asked. I tried to remember. The hospital had been a blur. Surgery, recovery, physical therapy, pain, so much pain. And then David had come to visit, 3 days before my surgery. He'd brought papers. "Just medical stuff, Mom," he'd said. "Power of attorney forms, so I can talk to your doctors if something goes wrong, make decisions if you can't." I'd been scared. Surgery at 68. What if something went wrong? What if I didn't wake up? So I signed. I signed everything he put in front of me. I didn't read them carefully. They were in small print and I didn't have my reading glasses. He said it was just a formality, just in case. I trusted him. "Oh, Margaret," Carol said quietly. She didn't say what we were both thinking, that I'd been a fool, that I should have known better. At my age, you'd think I'd know better, but he was my son, the baby I'd rocked to sleep, the little boy I'd taught to ride a bike, the teenager I'd stayed up late with, helping him with his homework. You want to trust your children. You want to believe they're good people, even when the evidence says otherwise. For 35 years, I'd had coffee on my porch at 7 every morning. Summer, winter, didn't matter. That April morning, I was sitting in Carol's kitchen instead, holding a mug that said "World's Best Friend," trying to understand how my son had stolen my house. The roses I'd planted when David was born were still blooming by the front walk. 35 years old. I'd pruned them every spring, fed them, talked to them. Someone else was looking at them through my kitchen window now. A stranger named Amanda with a baby on her hip. That night, staying in Carol's guest room, I couldn't sleep. The room was comfortable, but it wasn't mine. I kept thinking about those papers David had brought to the hospital. Just medical forms, he'd said. I found them in my overnight bag. I'd kept copies out of habit. 30 years as a teacher made me save everything. I spread them on Carol's kitchen table, under the light. They weren't medical forms. They were real estate documents, a quitclaim deed, power of attorney, a bill of sale. I transferred my house to David, given him the authority to sell it, signed my name to documents that said I agreed, and I'd signed them all. My signature, my hand. But I didn't remember signing any of this. I remembered signing power of attorney, medical power of attorney, not real estate, not a deed, not permission to sell my house. I sat there at Carol's kitchen table at 2 a.m, looking at the papers. My house. 360 mortgage payments over 30 years. Every month. Never missed one. I taught summer school to make extra money. I'd worked weekends grading papers. Robert and I had saved and scrimped and done without so we could afford that house, so we could give David a stable home, a yard to play in, a safe neighborhood, good schools, and he'd sold it. While I was in the hospital, while I couldn't walk, while I was on medication so strong I could barely think, he'd taken everything. I called him again. Still no answer. Straight to voicemail. I knew then he wasn't going to call back. He was avoiding me. He knew what he'd done, and he was hiding. The next morning, I sat at Carol's kitchen table with the documents spread in front of me. Sunlight came through the window. My reading glasses were perched on my nose. I looked at every page. The quitclaim deed said I'd transferred ownership of the property to David Thompson on March 28th. That was 2 days after I'd gone into the hospital. While I was still in post-operative recovery, barely able to think straight from the anesthesia and pain medication. The power of attorney gave David authority to handle all my financial affairs, to sell property, to access my bank accounts, to sign documents on my behalf. The bill of sale showed he'd sold the house to Joshua and Amanda Parker for $285,000. Closing date, April 10th, 5 days before I came home. I pulled out my checkbook, looked at my signature on the last check I'd written, March 15th, to the electric company. Then I looked at the signatures on the real estate documents. They were similar, but not quite right. The loop on the M in Margaret was different. The way the T in Thompson crossed, I always crossed it high, almost at the top. These signatures crossed lower. Someone had tried to copy my handwriting, and they'd gotten close. But it wasn't mine. Not all of it. "Carol," I said. She was making coffee at the counter. "Look at this." She came over. I showed her the signatures, my checkbook next to the deed. She squinted at them. "They don't match," she said quietly. I nodded. "No, they don't." My hands started shaking again. David hadn't just sold my house. He'd forged my signature to do it. Carol suggested I check my bank account. I had online banking. David had helped me set it up 2 years ago. I pulled out my phone, logged in. My checking account showed the same balance it had 3 weeks ago, $23,000. My savings from my teacher's pension, nothing more, no deposit, no $285,000 from a house sale. I stared at the screen. "Carol," I said. My voice sounded far away. "The money's not here." She looked over my shoulder at my phone. "What do you mean?" I turned the screen toward her. "David sold my house for $285,000. None of it is in my account." We sat there in silence for a moment. Then Carol said, "Check his account. If you have power of attorney, you might be able to see it." I shook my head. "I don't have access to David's accounts. He's 45 years old. Why would I?" But Carol was already pulling out her laptop. "Try the bank website. If he added you as a joint holder or gave you access..." She was grasping at straws. We both knew it. But I tried anyway. I couldn't log into David's account. I didn't have his password. I didn't have permission. But I knew. I knew where the money had gone. My phone rang. David. Finally. I almost didn't answer, but I needed to hear his voice, needed to understand. I put it on speaker so Carol could hear. "David," I said. My voice was steady, calmer than I felt. "Mom," he said. He sounded tired, strained. "I'm sorry I didn't call back yesterday. I've been dealing with some things." Some things. I looked at the documents on the table. "David, I came home from the hospital yesterday. There are people living in my house." "Mom, we talked about this. You agreed to sell. The house was too much for you to handle. You're 68. You can't take care of a 3-bedroom house by yourself anymore." His voice was patient, like he was talking to a confused child. "I never agreed to sell my house," I said. "You were very clear before the surgery, Mom. You said you wanted to move somewhere smaller, somewhere with less maintenance. I was helping you. I thought that's what you wanted." I could hear traffic in the background. He was in a car, driving somewhere, running away, maybe. "David, I want the house back. This is wrong." There was a pause, long enough that I thought he'd hung up. Then he said, "That's not possible, Mom. It's sold. The new owners moved in. They paid for it. You signed the paperwork. You need to accept this." His voice had changed, harder now, less patient. "Where's the money?" I asked. Another pause. "What money?" he said. But I heard it, the slight catch in his voice, the hesitation. "The $285,000, David, from selling my house. Where is it?" "I used it to handle your affairs, Mom. Medical bills, the assisted living deposit, moving costs. It's complicated." He was lying. I'd paid all my medical bills through insurance. I hadn't moved to assisted living. There were no moving costs. "David," I said quietly, "I need you to tell me the truth. Where is the money?" His voice cracked, just slightly. "I needed it, Mom. I was drowning. The debts. You don't understand the pressure I was under. I thought I could fix everything before you even knew. I thought." He stopped, caught himself. Then his voice hardened again. "It's done now. You need to accept reality and move on." "I'm not moving on," I said. "I want my house back." He laughed, sharp and bitter. "You can't afford a lawyer, Mom. Your pension barely covers your living expenses. Just let it go. I'll help you find an apartment, something nice. You'll be happier." Then he hung up. Just like that, the line went dead. I sat there holding my phone. Carol was staring at me. "He admitted it," she said. "He needed the money. He said he was drowning." I nodded slowly. I looked back at the documents, the forged signatures, the quit-claim deed, the bill of sale. And I thought about David's voice, the way it cracked when he said, "I needed it," the desperation underneath the manipulation. He was my son. I'd raised him. And somewhere along the way, he'd become someone I didn't recognize, someone who could steal from his own mother, someone who could forge her name and sell her house while she was helpless in a hospital bed. But I also heard what he didn't say. He thought I couldn't fight back. He thought I'd just accept it, give up, let him keep my house, my money, my entire life. He thought I was too old, too tired, too trusting. He was wrong. I picked up the documents, looked at the forged signatures one more time. Then I turned to Carol. "I need a lawyer," I said. "And I think I need a forensic document examiner, someone who can prove these aren't my signatures." Carol nodded. "I know someone," she said. "A lawyer who specializes in elder law, Linda Chen. She's helped other people in the neighborhood with estate issues. Let me call her." While Carol made the call, I sat there looking at the papers, at the house I'd lost, at the son who'd taken it. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this go. I wasn't going to accept it. David had made a choice. Now I was making mine. Carol's lawyer friend, Linda Chen, could see me that afternoon. Her office was in a small professional building downtown. Pale blue walls, diplomas on the wall, a photo on her desk of an elderly woman. Her mother, I assumed. Attorney Chen was maybe 52, professional but warm. She offered me tea when I sat down. Carol sat beside me. "Tell me everything." Attorney Chen said. So I did. The hospital, the documents, the strangers in my house, David's phone call. She took notes on a yellow legal pad. Her handwriting was neat, methodical. When I finished, she looked up. Mrs. Thompson, she said, I need to see your bank records. Can you access them online? I pulled out my phone, logged into my account again, showed her the balance, $23,000, the same amount that had been there 3 weeks ago. Attorney Chen nodded slowly. Then she said, We need to see your son's account. If he deposited the proceeds from the house sale, that's evidence of theft, but we'll need a subpoena for that. She made another note. First, let's go to your bank, in person. I want to see the full transaction history, and we need to check if there are any accounts with your name that you don't know about. The bank was cold, too much air conditioning. We sat in a small office with a manager named Richard. He was maybe 35, polite, efficient. He pulled up my account on his computer, typed quickly, frowned. Mrs. Thompson, he said, your account shows no deposits in the past 6 months except your pension payments, no withdrawals except your regular bills and expenses. There's no record of any real estate transaction. Attorney Chen leaned forward. Can you check if there are any other accounts under her name or joint accounts with David Thompson? Richard typed more, shook his head. No joint accounts, no other accounts. Then he paused. But I can search for accounts with David Thompson's name if he's a customer here. More typing. His frown deepened. There is an account under David Thompson's name. Same address on file as yours. Mrs. Thompson. Well, your old address. The house address. Attorney Chen's voice was calm but firm. Can you tell us if there were any large deposits to that account recently? Richard hesitated. I shouldn't. That's confidential client information. Attorney Chen reached into her briefcase, pulled out a business card. I'm Mrs. Thompson's attorney. This is a case of potential elder financial abuse. I can get a court order, but it would save time if you could confirm whether there was a deposit around April 10th of this year. Richard looked at me. I could see the decision in his eyes. He was a decent person. He wanted to help. There was a deposit, he said quietly. April 11th, $285,000, wire transfer from a title company. The room felt like it was tilting. I'd known, of course I'd known, but hearing it confirmed, seeing it in the bank's records, made it real in a different way. Carol reached over and squeezed my hand. I sat there looking at the computer screen, at Richard's sympathetic face, at the number he'd just said. $285,000. My house. I'd made 360 mortgage payments over 30 years. Every single month. I taught summer school to make extra money for those payments. I'd worked weekends grading essays. Robert and I had eaten pasta 3 nights a week sometimes to make sure we had enough for the mortgage. 30 years of payments. Paid off every cent. The house was mine, free and clear. And David had sold it out from under me while I was in a hospital bed, barely able to walk. He deposited the money into his own account. Not mine, his, every penny. He'd kept it all. The bank manager asked if I was okay. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. Can you print that? Attorney Chen asked. The transaction record? Richard hesitated again. Then he nodded. I'll print what I can give you. The rest you'll need to subpoena. He printed several pages, handed them to Attorney Chen, account numbers blocked out. But the date was there. April 11th. The amount? $285,000. Deposited to David Michael Thompson, my son. The baby I'd rocked to sleep. The little boy I'd taught to tie his shoes. He'd stolen my house. And this was the proof. Back in Attorney Chen's office, she spread the bank documents on her desk next to the real estate papers I'd brought. These signatures, she said, pointing to the quitclaim deed. You said they're not yours? I showed her my checkbook again. My real signature. She nodded. We need a forensic document examiner, someone who can testify in court that these signatures are forgeries. I know someone, Dr. Patricia Webb. She's testified in cases like this before. She made a call. Put it on speaker. Dr. Webb could see us the next morning. Dr. Webb's office was in a converted Victorian house near the university. She was maybe 60, gray hair pulled back in a bun, reading glasses on a chain. She examined the documents under a bright light with a magnifying glass. Then she scanned them into her computer, ran some kind of analysis. After 30 minutes, she looked up. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, "these are forgeries, not very good ones either. The pressure is inconsistent. The loop formations don't match your natural handwriting. And look here." She pointed to the screen. The notary's signature on the quitclaim deed is dated March 28th, but according to the hospital records you've provided, you were still in post-operative care that day, under heavy sedation. There's no way a notary visited you in the hospital and witnessed your signature. Attorney Chen leaned forward. "Can you testify to this in court?" Dr. Webb nodded. "Absolutely. I'll prepare a full report." Attorney Chen requested records from the title company that handled the sale. They arrived by email 2 days later. She printed them out, showed them to me in her office. The closing had been rushed, 3 days from listing to sale. That was unusual, she said. Red flags everywhere. Margaret Thompson, me, had never been present at the closing. David had showed up alone, claimed he had power of attorney, signed everything. The title company hadn't required me to be there in person, hadn't verified my identity, hadn't asked questions. They'd just processed the sale. "They were negligent," Attorney Chen said. "They should have required you to be present for a transaction of this size, or at least called to confirm, but they didn't. That's going to help us." The hospital records were straightforward. I'd been admitted March 25th for knee replacement surgery. Surgery on March 26th. Post-operative care through April 15th. The medication list was extensive. Oxycodone, Valium, other pain medications. The doctor's notes said I'd been disoriented for the first week, barely able to think clearly. The hospital visitor log showed David had visited 4 times, but there was no record of a notary visiting, no record of any legal documents being signed in the hospital. "This proves you weren't in a state to consent to anything," Attorney Chen said, "and it proves David lied about when you signed these documents." Carol provided a written statement. She'd seen the moving truck on April 18th. She'd called my cell phone, but I'd still been in the hospital, recovering, and hadn't answered. David had told her I was moving to assisted living, that I'd decided the house was too much. She'd believed him because he was my son. Why wouldn't she believe him? 2 other neighbors provided statements too. They'd seen the same thing. The moving truck, David supervising, the young couple moving in. Everyone had believed what David told them, that I wanted to sell, that I'd made this decision. Nobody had questioned it because nobody expected a son to steal from his own mother. Attorney Chen laid out all the evidence on her conference table: bank records, forged documents, forensic analysis, title company records, hospital records, witness statements. "This is elder financial abuse," she said. "Clear cut. We have 2 options. Civil court, we file a quiet title action to void the fraudulent sale and get your house back. And criminal, we report this to the district attorney. David committed fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. Those are felonies." She looked at me over her reading glasses. "What do you want to do?" I looked at all the papers, all the evidence, my entire life reduced to documents on a conference table. "Both," I said. "We do both, civil and criminal. I want my house back, and I want David to face consequences. He made a choice. He knew what he was doing. He wasn't confused. He wasn't making a mistake. He stole from me while I was helpless. That's not forgivable." Attorney Chen nodded. "Okay, I'll file the quiet title action this week, and I'm required by law to report this to Adult Protective Services. They'll investigate. They'll likely refer it to the district attorney for criminal prosecution." She paused. "Mrs. Thompson, I need you to understand. This will take time. Months, probably. There will be depositions. Court hearings. Your son will have to answer for what he's done. This will destroy whatever relationship you have left with him. Are you prepared for that? I thought about David, about raising him alone after Robert died, about every sacrifice I'd made, every dollar I'd given him, every time I'd bailed him out. And I thought about his voice on the phone, the way he'd told me to just accept it, to let it go, the way he thought I was too old, too weak, too trusting to fight back. Yes, I said, I'm prepared. He destroyed the relationship when he forged my name. I'm just making sure he faces the consequences. That night at Carol's house, I couldn't sleep again. I spread the evidence out on her dining table, the bank records showing where my money had gone, the forensic report showing the forgeries, the hospital records proving I couldn't have consented, the witness statements. I had a case, a strong case. Attorney Chen had said so, but building a case and winning it were two different things. David would fight back. He'd hire a lawyer. He'd claim I was confused, that I'd really agreed to sell, that I just didn't remember because of the medication. He'd try to gaslight me in court the way he'd tried to gaslight me on the phone. But this time, I had proof. This time, I wasn't alone. The morning light came through Carol's guest room window, soft and golden. I'd been staying with her for a week now, my overnight bag still packed in the corner. I hadn't unpacked because I didn't plan to stay. This wasn't my home. My home was 3 houses down, occupied by strangers. But this morning, I pulled out my photo album, the old one with the burgundy leather cover. I'd grabbed it from the house years ago when I was organizing. Thank God I had. I opened it on my lap. The first photo was David at 5 years old, standing in our front yard holding a dandelion, his smile missing 2 front teeth, his hair still that white blonde it was before it darkened. He was wearing his favorite dinosaur shirt. I remembered that day, a Saturday in May. Robert had been mowing the lawn. David had picked dandelions and brought them to me like they were roses. For you, Mama, he'd said. I'd put them in a jar on the kitchen table. They'd wilted by Monday, but I'd kept them there anyway. I flipped through more pages. David growing up, birthdays, Christmases, school photos. And then, David at 25, graduating from college. Cap and gown, that smile, confident, bright. He'd been so excited about his future, starting his own business, marketing consulting. He had big plans, big dreams. I'd given him $45,000 for that degree, taken a second mortgage to pay for it. And he'd been grateful, hugged me so tight at graduation. I'm going to make you proud, Mom, he'd said. I'm going to pay you back for everything. I'd believed him. I closed the album, sat there holding it, and I thought about something I'd been avoiding, a truth I didn't want to face. I raised David to be honest, to work hard, to take responsibility. Those were my values, Robert's values. But I also taught David something else, something I didn't mean to teach him. I taught him I'd always fix his mistakes. Every time he failed, I was there with money, with excuses, with second chances, college tuition, house down payment, business failure, divorce, $118,000 over 20 years. Every time he said he'd pay me back, every time he didn't, and every time I forgave him, gave him more. I thought I was being a good mother. I thought I was helping him build a future. I see now I was teaching him he'd never have to face consequences, that I'd always be there to bail him out, that my money, my sacrifices were infinite, that he could take and take and take, and I'd just keep giving. I thought about the papers he'd brought to the hospital. Just medical forms, Mom. How easily he'd lied, how practiced. This wasn't the first time he'd manipulated me. It was just the biggest time, the most devastating time. But the pattern had been there all along. I just refused to see it, because he was my son, because I loved him, because I wanted to believe he was still that little boy holding dandelions. But he wasn't. He was a 45-year-old man who'd forged my signature and sold my house while I was helpless in a hospital bed. He'd stolen $285,000 from me, his own mother, and when I'd confronted him, he'd told me to accept it, to move on, like I was the one being unreasonable. That stops today. I went downstairs. Carol was making coffee in the kitchen. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "I need your kitchen table for a few hours." She gestured at it. "It's yours." I spread all the evidence across the table. The bank records showing where my money went, the forged documents, the forensic examiner's report, the hospital records, the witness statements, everything Attorney Chen had gathered, everything that proved what David had done. I pulled out a red pen, started making notes in the margins, circling key dates, key amounts, drawing arrows connecting evidence, building the case. This was how I used to grade essays. 30 years of teaching high school English, I'd spread papers across my dining room table at home, red pen in hand, finding the argument, following the logic, connecting the pieces, building toward a thesis. This was the same, except this time, the essay was about my own life, and the thesis was simple. David Thompson committed fraud. The evidence was overwhelming. The conclusion was inevitable. My phone rang. Emily, my stepdaughter, Robert's daughter from his first marriage. She'd been trying to reach me for days. I'd been avoiding her calls. But I answered this time. "Margaret," she said, relief in her voice. "I've been so worried. David said you were confused, that you don't remember agreeing to sell the house. Are you okay?" I looked at the evidence spread across the table. "Emily," I said, "David lied to you. I never agreed to sell my house. He forged my signature while I was in the hospital. He stole $285,000 from me." Silence on the line, then, "What?" Her voice was small, disbelieving. "I have proof," I said. "Bank records, forensic analysis, hospital records, everything. I'm taking him to court." More silence. Then Emily said quietly, "I believe you. He tried to borrow money from me last week. Something felt wrong. I didn't send it." I closed my eyes. "Good. Don't enable him. He'll never pay you back." "I stand with you, Mom," Emily said. Mom. She'd called me Mom since she was 8 years old. Since Robert and I got married, David was her half-brother. They'd grown up together, but she was choosing me. I felt something loosen in my chest. "Thank you," I said. My voice cracked just slightly. "That means everything." After we hung up, I went back to the evidence, kept making notes, building the case. At 3 o'clock, I had another meeting with Attorney Chen. I brought my marked-up documents, showed her my notes, my connections, my timeline. She smiled. "You've built our entire trial strategy," she said. "This is exactly what we need." She explained the next steps. File the quiet title action in civil court. 6 months. To trial. Gather evidence. Depositions. Adult Protective Services would investigate and refer to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. "What about the young couple?" I asked. "The buyers. They didn't do anything wrong." Attorney Chen nodded. "When the court voids the sale, they'll lose the house, but they can sue David or the title company to get their money back. You're the rightful owner. The sale was fraudulent." I thought about Amanda, the baby on her hip, the toys in my front yard. She'd done nothing wrong. She was a victim too, but I couldn't let that stop me. This was my house, my life. "Okay," I said. "File the paperwork." Attorney Chen pulled out a retainer agreement, slid it across her desk. My hands shook as I picked up the pen. The last time I'd signed legal documents, David had been standing over me in a hospital bed, lying to me, stealing from me. This time, I was signing to get my life back, to hold my son accountable, to make sure he faced consequences for once in his life. I signed my name, clear and steady, Margaret Ann Thompson. My real signature, not a forgery. I sat in that lawyer's office looking at the evidence, 35 years in that house, and I finally saw David clearly, not my little boy, a man who made a choice. Attorney Chen gathered the documents. "This is going to be hard, Margaret. David will fight. He'll claim you're misremembering, that you did agree to sell, that you're just confused because of the medication. He'll attack your credibility, your memory, your age. Are you ready for that? I thought about the photo album, the little boy with the dandelion, the young man at graduation promising to pay me back, and I thought about the 45-year-old man who'd forged my signature and stolen my house. Yes, I said, I'm ready. Let him try. The paperwork was filed. The quiet title action. The complaint detailing fraud, forgery, elder abuse. Adult Protective Services opened an investigation. The police took my statement. A detective, Mark Rodriguez, mid-40s professional, said they'd build a criminal case alongside the civil one. We see this more than people realize, he told me in Carol's living room. Elder financial abuse by family members. It's one of the hardest crimes to prosecute because victims often don't want to press charges. But you're doing the right thing. The next 6 months were a blur. Depositions, document requests, interrogatories, written questions both sides had to answer under oath. The detective tracked David's spending. $185,000 gone in 6 months. Most of it, gambling, casinos, online betting sites. The rest went to creditors he'd been dodging for years. By the time I filed the lawsuit, there was barely $100,000 left. He'd burned through my life savings like it was nothing. Emily called me once a week, Sunday evenings at 7. She'd made it a ritual. "How are you holding up, Mom?" she'd ask, and I'd tell her. The latest development, the newest document request, the way my hands still shook when I thought about the house. She never made excuses for David, never tried to defend him, but I could hear the sadness in her voice. He was her brother. She'd grown up with him, loved him, and now she was watching him destroy himself. "Has he called you?" I asked one Sunday. She was quiet for a moment. Then, "He called last week. Angry, said you were ruining his life, that you were being vindictive. I told him he ruined his own life when he forged your signature." "How did he react?" I asked. Emily sighed. "He hung up on me. He's not talking to me anymore. I think he sees me as a traitor." I understood that. David had always been good at making himself the victim, at twisting situations so he was the one being hurt, the one being wronged. "I'm sorry," I told Emily. "I know this is hard for you." She was firm. "Don't apologize. You did nothing wrong. He did, and someone needed to hold him accountable. I'm glad it's you." About 3 months into the process, Emily asked if she could visit. Bring the kids. Her children, my step-grandchildren, were 8 and 10. They didn't understand why Grandma wasn't living in the house anymore, why Uncle David was in trouble. Emily wanted to explain it to them, but she also wanted them to see me, to know I was okay. We met at Carol's house on a Saturday afternoon. The kids ran into the guest room where I was staying, hugged me tight. "Why don't you live in your house anymore, Grandma?" the youngest asked. I looked at Emily. She nodded. "Permission to tell the truth. Uncle David made some bad choices," I said carefully. "He took something that wasn't his, and now we're working with a judge to make it right." The oldest, smart, perceptive, frowned. "Did he steal from you?" I nodded. "Yes, he did." Her face went hard. 8 years old and she already understood betrayal. "That's not okay," she said. "No," I agreed. "It's not." Before she left, Emily pulled me aside. "David called me yesterday," she said quietly. "He wants to talk to you. He says he has an offer, a settlement. He asked me to convince you to hear him out." I felt my stomach tighten. "What kind of offer?" Emily shook her head. "I don't know. He wouldn't tell me, just said it would make everything go away, that you wouldn't have to go to court." I thought about that. David, desperate, running out of money, facing criminal charges. Of course he wanted to settle. "Tell him to have his lawyer contact Attorney Chen," I said. "I'm not talking to him directly." 3 days later, Attorney Chen called. David's attorney sent a settlement offer, $85,000. That's what's left of the proceeds after he spent the rest. In exchange, you drop the civil case and don't cooperate with the criminal investigation. She paused. "It's not nothing, Margaret. $85,000 could buy you a nice condo, help you start over. I was standing in Carol's kitchen, looking out the window at my house down the street. I could see the roof, the chimney, the oak tree in the front yard. "No," I said. "I don't want his money. I want my house." Attorney Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Okay, I'll reject the offer." I heard something in her voice. Respect, maybe, or understanding. "He thought you'd take it, didn't he?" I asked. "He thought you were trying to scare him, that you'd settle for cash and walk away." Attorney Chen's voice was firm. "Yes, I think he did. He was wrong." A month later, another offer came, this time from the title company. They'd been negligent in processing the sale, hadn't verified my identity, hadn't required me to be present. Now they were facing a lawsuit, too. Their lawyers offered $150,000 to settle everything, make me go away, drop the case, sign a non-disclosure agreement, let the young couple keep the house. "It's more than the house is worth," Attorney Chen said. "You could buy another house, a bigger one even, and you wouldn't have to go through a trial." I thought about it. I really did. $150,000. A fresh start. No more legal battles, no more sleepless nights, no more spreading documents across Carol's dining table, trying to make sense of evidence and depositions. But then I thought about David, about the way he'd lied to me in the hospital, about the forged signatures, about the moment I'd stood on my own porch and a stranger had answered the door. "No," I said. "My house isn't for sale. Not to David, not to the title company, not to anyone. I want what's mine." I walked past the house sometimes, couldn't help it. It was on the way to the grocery store, to the pharmacy. I'd drive by slowly, look at the toys in the front yard, the sandbox where my roses used to be. One day, I saw Amanda outside with the baby. The baby was bigger now, walking, stumbling on the grass. Amanda looked up, saw me. We made eye contact for just a second. Then I looked away, kept driving. I felt guilty. She'd done nothing wrong. Her husband had done nothing wrong. They'd bought a house in good faith, had no idea it was stolen, and now they were going to lose it, lose everything they'd put into it. But it was my house. I'd earned it, and I wasn't going to let guilt stop me from getting it back. The court date was set, October 15th, 6 months after I'd come home from the hospital to find strangers in my house. 6 months of depositions, evidence gathering, sleepless nights. David was scheduled to give a deposition in September, 2 weeks before trial. I wasn't allowed to be there. My attorney said it was better if I wasn't. She'd be there. She'd ask the questions. But the morning of the deposition, she called me. "Margaret," she said. Her voice was tight. "David didn't show up. His attorney says he can't reach him." My heart dropped. "He ran." Attorney Chen was careful. "We don't know yet. The detective is looking for him, but if he's fled, this gets more complicated." I sat in Carol's kitchen, the same spot I'd sat 100 times in the past 6 months, making notes, reviewing documents, building the case, and I thought, he's gone. He's taken what's left of the money and disappeared. I'll never see him again, never get my house back, never get justice. I felt cold, empty. Carol put her hand on mine. "Don't assume the worst," she said. "Wait and see." 3 hours later, Attorney Chen called back. They found him. He was at a casino, said he lost track of time. The detective doesn't believe him. Neither do I, but he's not gone. The deposition is rescheduled for tomorrow. Relief flooded through me. Then anger. A casino. Of course. Even now. Even with a trial 2 weeks away. Even facing criminal charges. He was still gambling. Still making the same choices. Still refusing to face consequences. "Margaret," Attorney Chen said, "the detective tracked his spending. In the last 6 months, David's gambled away another $40,000. There's $60,000 left. Maybe. If we win the civil case, that's what you'll get back. $60,000. Not $285. Not the full value of your house. Just $60. I absorbed that. $225,000. Gone. Gambled away. Wasted. But you'll get the house back, she continued. The title, the deed. It'll be yours again. You can sell it for the full value if you want, or keep it. That's the important part. I looked out the window, at my house down the street, at the life I'd lost, and I thought about $60,000 versus $285,000. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the principle. About making sure David faced consequences, about proving that you can't steal from your own mother and get away with it. Okay, I said. We go to trial. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights that hummed quietly, rows of benches like church pews. I sat at a table on the left side with Attorney Chen, her briefcase open, documents organized in color-coded folders. Red for bank records, blue for forensic analysis, green for hospital records. Everything labeled, everything ready. David sat at a table on the right side. His attorney, a man named James Cooper, mid-40s, expensive suit, leaned over, whispering to him. David looked thinner than the last time I'd seen him. His suit hung loose on his frame. His hair was graying at the temples. He didn't look at me, not once. Just kept his eyes down on the table in front of him. Like if he didn't look at me, I wouldn't be real. Behind me, Carol sat in the gallery. Emily, too. She'd driven 6 hours to be here, to support me. David's ex-wife wasn't there. None of his friends, just his attorney. It was strange to see, a life reduced to one person in a suit who was paid to defend him. The bailiff called, "All rise." We stood. Judge Patricia Williamson entered. Late 50s, gray hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain. She'd been on the bench for 20 years, Attorney Chen had told me. She specialized in probate and elder law cases. She'd seen cases like mine before. She sat. We sat. She looked over her glasses at both tables. This is the matter of Thompson versus Thompson. Quiet title action. Are both parties ready? Attorney Chen stood. Yes, Your Honor. David's attorney stood. Yes, Your Honor. Proceed, Judge Williamson said. Attorney Chen called her first witness, Dr. Patricia Webb, the forensic document examiner. Dr. Webb walked to the stand, sworn in, sat down. Attorney Chen asked her to state her qualifications. 25 years analyzing questioned documents, testified in over 300 cases, certified by the American Board of Forensic Document Examiners. The judge nodded, accepted her as an expert. Dr. Webb, Attorney Chen said, you examined the signatures on 3 documents in this case, a quitclaim deed, a power of attorney, and a bill of sale. Can you tell the court what you found? Dr. Webb opened a folder, pulled out enlarged copies of the documents. I compared these signatures to known exemplars of Margaret Thompson's handwriting, including signatures on checks, tax returns, and medical forms from before her hospitalization. The signatures on the real estate documents show clear signs of forgery. Attorney Chen stepped closer. Can you explain what those signs are? Dr. Webb pointed to the screen where the signatures were projected. First, the pressure. Mrs. Thompson's natural signature shows consistent pressure throughout. These forged signatures show hesitation, lighter pressure in some areas, heavier in others. That indicates someone copying slowly, carefully. Second, the loop formations. Mrs. Thompson forms her capital M with a specific loop pattern, high and narrow. The forged M is wider and lower. Third, the cross-stroke on the T in Thompson. Mrs. Thompson crosses high, almost at the top of the vertical line. The forged signatures cross lower. These are all indicators of forgery. And the notary signatures? Attorney Chen asked. Dr. Webb turned to another page. The quitclaim deed is dated March 28th and shows a notary signature claiming to have witnessed Mrs. Thompson sign the document. However, according to hospital records, Mrs. Thompson was in post-operative recovery that day, under heavy sedation. She couldn't have appeared before a notary. The notary's signature itself appears to be fraudulent as well. David's attorney cross-examined. tried to suggest that pain medication could have changed Margaret's handwriting, that elderly people's signatures vary. Dr. Webb was calm, professional. I accounted for natural variation. I compared multiple exemplars over several years. The differences here are not natural variation. They're systematic indicators of forgery. The attorney sat down. He had nothing. The second witness was Richard Porter, the bank manager. He walked to the stand, nervous, kept clearing his throat, but his testimony was clear. On April 11th, a wire transfer of $285,000 was deposited into an account under David Thompson's name. The wire came from Heritage Title Company. It was the proceeds from the sale of the property at 1427 Maple Street. Attorney Chen asked, "Did any money get deposited into Margaret Thompson's account?" Richard shook his head. "No, none. Mrs. Thompson's account showed no transactions related to the property sale." "And did you find any joint accounts? Any accounts linking Margaret Thompson and David Thompson?" Attorney Chen asked. Richard consulted his notes. No joint accounts, no authorized signers. The accounts were completely separate." Cross-examination was brief. David's attorney had no way to dispute bank records. The money had gone to David, all of it. That was a fact. 3 more witnesses testified. Carol, who'd seen the moving truck and been told I was moving to assisted living. A hospital administrator who confirmed I'd been under medication and no notary had visited. The title company representative who admitted they hadn't required me to be present at the closing. Attorney Chen kept each testimony tight, focused, building the case piece by piece. Then it was David's turn. He walked to the stand, took the oath, sat down. His attorney asked him basic questions first: his name, his relationship to me, his mother. The attorney asked, "Mr. Thompson, did your mother give you permission to sell her house?" David's voice was quiet. "Yes, she did." He still wouldn't look at me. "Can you explain the circumstances?" the attorney asked. David took a breath. "My mother was going into the hospital for surgery. She was worried. She asked me to handle her affairs while she was recovering. She said the house was too much for her to maintain. She wanted to move somewhere smaller, with less upkeep. She asked me to sell it and find her an assisted living facility. It was a good story. Practiced. Smooth. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed it." "And the documents?" the attorney asked. "The quit-claim deed and power of attorney?" David nodded. "She signed them before the surgery. She wanted everything in order, in case something went wrong." The attorney sat down. It was Attorney Chen's turn. She stood, walked slowly toward the witness stand. "Mr. Thompson," she said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "You testified that your mother signed these documents before her surgery. Is that correct?" David nodded. "Yes." Attorney Chen picked up a folder. Her surgery was March 26th. The quitclaim deed is dated March 28th. That's 2 days after the surgery. How could she have signed it before the surgery if it's dated after? David's eyes flickered. I meant she agreed to it before. The document was executed later." Attorney Chen nodded. "Executed by whom?" David was quiet. "I signed on her behalf with the power of attorney." Attorney Chen pulled out another document. "But the power of attorney is also dated March 28th. So you didn't have power of attorney authority before that date. How did you have authority to execute the deed?" David's attorney objected. "Speculation." The judge looked at David. "The witness can answer." David shifted in his seat. She gave me verbal permission." Attorney Chen stepped closer. "Mr. Thompson, did your mother receive any money from the sale of her house?" David's voice dropped. "No." "Where did the $285,000 go?" Attorney Chen asked. David looked down. "To me." "Why did you forge her signature on these documents?" Attorney Chen's voice was still gentle, but firm. "I didn't," David started, then stopped. His voice cracked, just slightly. "I needed the money, my debts, the gambling. I was desperate. I thought I could fix everything before she found out. I thought I could pay her back. I thought... He looked up. For the first time, he looked at me. His eyes were red, exhausted. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. The courtroom was silent. Judge Williamson watched him carefully. Attorney Chen waited a moment, then said, "You forged your mother's signature while she was incapacitated in a hospital. You sold her house without her knowledge or consent. You took all the proceeds for yourself, and you gambled most of it away. Is that accurate?" David's shoulders slumped. "Yes." Attorney Chen turned to the judge. No further questions. David's attorney tried to recover on redirect, asked about David's financial struggles, the divorce, the business failure, tried to make him sympathetic, but the damage was done. David had admitted it, on the stand, under oath. He'd forged the documents, taken the money, gambled it away. There was no walking that back. After David stepped down, Attorney Chen presented the evidence binder to the judge. Every document, every record, every piece of proof, the bank statements showing the money trail, the forensic analysis, the hospital records, the witness statements, the title company's negligent practices, the timeline proving David's story was impossible. Judge Williamson put on her reading glasses, reviewed the binder in silence. 10 minutes, 15. The courtroom waited. I could hear the fluorescent lights humming, someone coughing in the back row, my own heartbeat. Finally, Judge Williamson looked up. "I've reviewed all the evidence presented today. The testimony of Dr. Webb clearly establishes that the signatures on the real estate documents are forgeries. The bank records show that the proceeds from the sale went entirely to the defendant, David Thompson, and none to the plaintiff, Margaret Thompson. The hospital records prove Mrs. Thompson was incapacitated at the time the documents are dated, and Mr. Thompson's own testimony confirms he executed these documents without proper authority and took the proceeds for personal use." She paused, looked directly at David. "This is elder financial abuse, clear and unambiguous." She continued, "The court finds that the sale of the property at 1427 Maple Street was fraudulent. The quitclaim deed is void. The sale is void. Title to the property is restored to Margaret Ann Thompson, effective immediately." I felt something break open in my chest. The house, my house, mine again. The defendant, David Thompson, is ordered to return all remaining proceeds from the sale within 30 days. Based on the evidence, that appears to be approximately $60,000. In addition, Mr. Thompson is liable for the plaintiff's attorney fees in the amount of $15,000. Judge Williamson looked at some notes. The court is also referring this matter to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. Mr. Thompson's actions constitute forgery, theft, and elder abuse under state law. Those are felony charges. She looked at me. "Mrs. Thompson, you will need to coordinate with the buyers of the property. They will have to vacate. They can pursue recovery from Mr. Thompson or the title company, but that's a separate matter. The property is legally yours." When the judge read the ruling, I didn't feel triumphant, relief, and sadness, but mostly relief. She brought down her gavel. "This court is adjourned." Everyone stood. Judge Williamson left through the door behind the bench. I stood there, trying to process. The house was mine. After 6 months, after depositions and evidence and sleepless nights, after watching my son lie on the stand and then break down, after everything, the house was mine. Attorney Chen put her hand on my shoulder. "You did it," she said quietly. I nodded. Couldn't speak yet. Emily came forward, hugged me. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," she whispered. Carol was there too, smiling, crying a little. "Let's go home," she said. And I realized I could go home. David walked past with his attorney. Didn't look at me, didn't say anything, just walked out of the courtroom, his shoulders hunched, defeated. I watched him go. The little boy who'd brought me dandelions, the teenager who'd painted the porch, the man who'd stolen everything. I didn't hate him. I just felt empty and tired and ready to move forward. The locksmith met me at the house 3 days after the trial. He changed all the locks, gave me new keys. I put them on my old keychain, the one Robert had given me 30 years ago. The brass was tarnished now, worn smooth from decades of use, but it still worked. I stood at my front door. My hand touched the wood, the same door I'd knocked on 6 months ago when strangers lived here. I turned the key. It fit. The lock clicked. The door opened. I was home. The house was empty. Joshua and Amanda Parker had moved out the day before. They'd taken their furniture, their toys, everything. The rooms echoed when I walked through them, my footsteps loud on the hardwood floors. The living room where my reading chair used to be, bare now. The kitchen where I'd made coffee every morning for 35 years, empty counters. My bedroom, just carpet indentations where their bed had been, but it was mine. Every empty room, every echo, mine. David's attorney sent a check 2 weeks later, $60,000, what was left after he'd gambled away most of my house. The attorney fees, $15,000, came separately, $75,000 total. Not the $285,000 the house had sold for, not even close. But it was something. I deposited it, started buying furniture again, piece by piece, building my life back. The district attorney's office called. David had taken a plea deal. 3 counts, forgery, grand theft, elder abuse. He pled guilty to all 3. Sentencing? 3 years probation, not prison. Monthly restitution payments of $500 until the full amount was repaid. A no-contact order. 5 years. He couldn't call me, couldn't come to my house, couldn't contact me in any way. If he did, he'd go to jail. The DA said I could read a victim impact statement at sentencing if I wanted. I declined. I'd said everything I needed to say in court. I was done. Carol helped me move back in. She brought casseroles, 3 of them, different kinds, enough to last me a week. "So you don't have to cook while you're settling in," she said. She'd checked on me every single day for 6 months, driven me to attorney meetings, sat with me in court, let me stay in her guest room without complaint. "Thank you," I told her, "for everything." She waved a hand. That's what neighbors are for. But we both knew it was more than that. She'd saved me. Not financially, not legally, but she'd kept me from drowning in the darkness. "You're stronger than you knew," she said. "I always knew," I replied. She smiled. I did too. Attorney Chen closed my file. She called me to her office one last time, handed me copies of everything, the court order, the deed showing my name, the restitution agreement. "Keep these safe," she said, "in case you ever need them." She paused, looked at me over her reading glasses. "You know, I've been practicing elder law for 15 years. I've seen a lot of cases like yours. Most people don't fight back. They're too scared, too ashamed, too tired. But you did, and you won. I'm using your case as an example in a seminar I'm teaching next month. How to build a strong case. How to support clients through family betrayal." She smiled. "My mother would have liked you." I thought of the photo on her desk, the elderly woman. "Thank you for fighting for me," I said. "Thank you for letting me," she replied. Emily came to visit with the kids 2 weeks after I moved back. They ran through the empty rooms, their voices echoing, laughing. "Grandma, can we play hide and seek?" the youngest asked. I nodded. "Of course." I counted while they hid, found them behind doors and in closets, the same places David used to hide when he was little. Emily stood in the kitchen doorway, watching. "He sent me a letter," she said quietly. "David, from his apartment. He's not allowed to contact you, but he wanted me to give you something." She pulled an envelope from her purse. "You don't have to read it," she said. "I can throw it away." I took it, looked at my name on the front, David's handwriting, neater than usual, like he'd tried hard to make it perfect. "I'll read it," I said. After Emily left, I sat at my kitchen table, the one piece of furniture I'd bought first, and opened the envelope. The letter was handwritten, 3 pages. I read it slowly. Mom, I know I can't undo what I did. I've destroyed your trust, your security, everything. The gambling controlled me. I see that now in treatment. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I need you to know I'm getting help. Real help this time. The house was yours. I stole your life from you. I'm sorry doesn't cover it, but I am. I'm so sorry. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make this right. Love, David. I read it twice, then folded it and put it back in the envelope. I felt something. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I believed him. I believed he was sorry. I believed he was broken. But that didn't change what he'd done. And it didn't mean I had to let him back into my life. I called Emily that evening. Tell him I got his letter, I said. Tell him I'm glad he's getting help. I hope he finds peace. But I can't have him in my life right now. Maybe someday. Not now. I need to feel safe again. 6 months passed. I replanted the garden, the roses that had been torn out to make room for the sandbox. I bought new bushes, smaller than the old ones, but they'd grow. Carol helped me dig the holes. We worked in silence mostly, just the sound of shovels and dirt, the smell of soil and mulch. When we finished, Carol stood back and looked at the yard. "It's going to be beautiful," she said. I nodded. It already is. It's been a year since I came home from the hospital to find strangers in my house. 6 months since the trial. I'm sitting on my front porch now, 7 in the morning, coffee in my hand, the same ritual I had for 35 years before David sold my house. The roses are blooming again, not the same bushes, those are gone, but new ones, smaller. They'll grow. Carol helped me plant them. She still checks on me every morning, a text at 6:30. Coffee on the porch? Sometimes I say yes. Sometimes I say I need a quiet morning. She understands both. I'm living alone. Exactly what I wanted before all of this happened, before the surgery, before David, before everything. The house is mine again, furnished now. Not the same furniture I had before, that's long gone, but pieces I've chosen. A blue reading chair in the living room, a small table in the kitchen where I eat breakfast and grade essays. I'm tutoring now, 3 students, high school English. Not for the money, for the routine, for the purpose. Emily visits every Sunday, brings the kids. They play in the yard, hide and seek, tag. The same games David played when he was little. She doesn't mention him unless I ask, and I don't ask often. I know he's still making his restitution payments. $500 a month. I know he's in treatment, gambling addiction programs, therapy. Emily says he's trying. I believe her, but he's not part of my life. Maybe someday, not now. I've updated my estate plan. Everything ironclad now, living trust, power of attorney that requires 2 attorneys to witness, multiple safeguards. My lawyer, a different one for estate planning, said, "You've learned the hard way." I nodded. Yes, but I learned. I spoke at a senior center once, 3 months ago. Attorney Chen asked if I'd share my story, help other seniors recognize the warning signs. I stood in front of 40 people and told them what happened, how my son forged my signature, how he sold my house, how I fought back. Afterward, 5 people came up to me, told me similar things had happened to them, or almost happened. I gave them Attorney Chen's card. "Don't wait," I said. "Don't hope it gets better. Get help now." The garden club ladies still bring casseroles when I'm tired from replanting. They don't ask questions. They just show up, leave food on the porch, send a text, thinking of you. It's enough. I don't need more than that. I've learned something important this year. Trust is important, but verification is essential. I trusted David because he was my son. I should have verified, read what I was signing, asked questions, insisted on being present. Age doesn't make you helpless. I'm 69 now. I went to court. I fought a legal battle. I won. And I'm still here, still standing. Some days I still can't believe it happened. But I'm here. I'm standing. That counts for something. The coffee's still warm. The morning air is cool. October now. Fall. The leaves on the oak tree are turning red and gold. I can see the street from here. Carol's house. The neighborhood I've lived in for 35 years. My home. Not because someone gave it to me. Not because I inherited it. Because I earned it. Twice. Once with Robert, paying off that mortgage over 30 years. And once in court, proving it was mine. This porch. This coffee. This quiet morning. Mine.